Imagine this, you are at a work, it's another normal Tuesday. Suddenly you got an email from your boss asking for to wire money immediately, and it's just a one click and your company loses everything. And the cybersecurity is no longer an IT problem, it is a survival of a business. Sometimes movies often shows that hacker typing so fast, right, in the dark room. What does it happen in the real life and behind the scene?
Hacked by ransomware, where all your business information is locked up, your people can't access it. That grinds everything to a halt. And 60% of small businesses that have a major data breach go out of business within 6 months. Significant cyber attack every 6 seconds. So it happens and it's out there.
Biggest threat today, AI, human, or nations?
Russia actually had hacked into their electrical grids many times before the war. But apparently the Ukrainians had learned quite a bit about that. Imagine the most of our communications are internet-based. You compromise that, that's a huge advantage for an enemy.
Imagine this, you are at a work, it's another normal Tuesday. Suddenly you got an email from your boss that it's urgent and frantic, that asking for to wire money immediately. The email looks okay, the logo looks okay, and the tone was it's just a spot on, and it's just a one click and your company loses everything. Welcome back to the Samir Show. I'm your host Samir Misri, and today we are peeling back the curtain on the world the most people only see in the movies: cyber attack, phishing scams, and the deepfake impersonation. This isn't a science fiction, it's happening now and it's getting smarter and smarter. So joining me is Jonathan, who is a cybersecurity expert who has been in trenches in the business, helping the business in the survival. Digital embassies could destroy them in a minute. Here's now just to explain not the tech, but to expose the psychology of the hackers, the tactics, and the real world chaos behind the scenes. So we are deep diving into the social engineering, the AI powered scam, and the cybersecurity is no longer an IT problem, it is a survival of a business. So turn up the volume, lock up your screens, and prepare to rethink about your business, about your online safety. This is not just another talk. This is a cyber war and a cyber wake up call. So, Jonathan, welcome back to the Samir Show. How are you, sir?
I'm glad to be here, Samir.
We're gonna have deep diving into the cybersecurity questions related right now. Everyone, as you saw, right, the businesses are wrenching down. The business are getting getting hacked from the hackers, right? So, Jonathan, sometimes movies often shows that hacker typing so fast, right, in the dark room. What does it happen in the real life and behind the scene?
Yeah, so I think one of the things you talked about in your intro is, for small businesses, it can grind everything to a halt. And so a lot of times there's business leaders think, well, it's an IT problem. I don't really need to be concerned with it. The guys handling the computers will take care of all that. And it really is more than just a computer issue. It is one of corporate existence. And so if you can imagine, if your business gets hacked by ransomware, where all your business information is locked up, your people can't access it, that grinds everything to a halt. And so that would be a work stoppage. And oftentimes, an unprepared business could be stopped for over a month, where they have to rebuild servers, recollect all that data, bring it up online. And you can imagine the cost of doing that, of not being in business for a month. And so that work stoppage causes a lot of businesses to go under. There's been a statistic by the Securities Exchange Commission that 60% of small businesses that have a major data breach go out of business within 6 months. So it is something that every business leader should be thinking about, not just think that IT people are taking care of it. It's another risk factor that really has a direct effect on the success of that business. Okay. So you're talking about hackers. What the vision is, what it looks like in real life. A lot of times we have a vision of a guy with a hoodie over and typing on the keyboard at night, kind of like typing these commands that no one understands.
Hmm.
And there's all sorts of different types of hackers. There's guys that are not very sophisticated, and they might download some tools off the dark web, and they'll use those tools to do scanning and run different scripts to see if they can find a vulnerability. It's not very sophisticated hacking, but there's a lot of people out there that's how they get started out. They're called script kiddies, where they're just kind of like, they're not sophisticated, but they have those tools and they start running and look for different vulnerabilities. That scale can kind of go further up the chain as far as increasing sophistication. And so, you vision guys sitting in their basement, just kind of drinking Mountain Dew and typing on
Yeah,
the
exactly.
keyboards. And there are some of those guys that are out there that are like that, but then there's also professional teams that work for organized crime or work for nation states, and they have more sophisticated tools. So it kind of goes everything from guys that are just trying to download some tools and figure it out, to people that are really passionate about it and trying to find those vulnerabilities, all the way up to organized groups that are hacking as a part of a profession.
Okay. So for our new listeners that who doesn't know about like this technical terms, right? Can you just brief about it? What is a ransomware?
Yeah, ransomware it's a type of malicious software that, if it's downloaded, what it does is it travels across your system, like identifies all the hard drives, all the storage areas of a computer network. And
Okay.
then what it does is it encrypts all those files. And so what it does is it locks up all that information, and the hackers will basically hold a ransom for you to make payment, and then they'll offer to send you the key to decrypt all those files. It's a fairly sophisticated operation that they oftentimes have, but it's a situation that no business wants to be in, because they're relying on the honesty of the criminal,
Right.
that they'll actually get their information back.
Right. Right. So in your career, can you just walk us through like minute a minute, right? Like how the cyber breach minute to minute happening? Like suppose any suspicious emails came, right? So what is your first step to start with? How to identify that it's a breach or something ransomware, or what is it?
It really depends on the sophistication of the attack. And so sometimes the attacks are automated, where if they download some type of malicious software, it'll automatically start doing things. So oftentimes there's a process where hackers try to get access to the system, and that's where they try to fool someone into downloading some type of software. And then they'll conduct reconnaissance of the network, figuring out what systems are connected to that system, and then what valuable information is within that computer network. They'll also establish a command channel back to the hackers, so they can kind of have access into the network, and that's what they're really about doing, is establishing and maintaining that access. And then once that's done and they've done that reconnaissance, that's when they start making the move. They may either try to lock it up through ransomware. They may try to exfiltrate valuable information, but they'll do those things while trying to maintain access. So once they have that information or ransomware deployed, they'll look to do some type of criminal behavior, whether it's extorting for money, or putting information on the dark web. It just depends on what the information is that they have and how they feel that they can exploit it. It can go from very quickly, if it's an automated system where they just try to do a quick ransomware hit on an individual, or they'll maintain access to a system for weeks or months as they do reconnaissance and waiting for the right time to make their move. It really depends on the target, on how quickly it moves. I do see, though, that when someone does fall for a phishing email and they enter the credential information, the hackers will attempt to use that instantaneously. Like, they'll immediately take that password and username and try to get access into a system.
Okay. Many times in my Gmail, what happened that daily I got lots of email which has just an attachment of a PDF file which shows the invoice, the invoice of the PayPal, even it shows the proper logo and everything that I bought something and I need to pay this much of amount. I don't know where this get all these informations are getting from. Many times I like report as a spam, but from the different email they are sending constantly. So do you think that is it as phishing scams kind of thing?
It could be. And so a lot of times these phishing scams are made to look as legitimate as possible.
Mhm.
And you talk about a PDF attachment,
Mhm.
they'll sometimes size it just so you can barely maybe read it, but not necessarily where you can understand it. So it
Yeah,
kind of gets that, it kind of like it's that hook where you want to open it and see it more and
correct.
fool you into opening it. And generally when you click on an attachment, it'll do one of two things. It'll say, oh, it's a secure document, and so you need to enter your password and username to access it. That's them trying to get your information, get your credentials, or it'll download some type of malicious software. When you open it, you might not see a PDF, but it'll download some type of malicious software in the background.
Oh, okay. Okay. Now let's talk about the manipulations. Now, how the hackers using the psychology, not just the code, like how they are thinking about that could be the reasons that companies gonna break down here. What is the psychology there?
Well, they generally try to take advantage of, they'll do reconnaissance sometimes on individuals, try to understand, what they would likely to be responsive to. And then they'll also develop some type of urgency. So we talk about businesses and securing those organizations. So oftentimes in a phishing scam against the company, they might try to pretend to be a senior official, like a chief financial officer, the CEO, and they'll send a message pretending to be that official to someone else that might be the ones that are in charge of money transfers or funds, pretending to be that person. And saying, "Hey, I'm in a meeting. I need you to do this right now." And then, so what they try to do is kind of create a sense of authority, that this person has to respond to this email,
Hmm,
sense of urgency, and then the specific task of what they're looking for that person to do.
correct.
And so by combining those three things, when you create that sense of urgency and authority,
Hmm,
people tend to not, they tend to react more than think through things. And that's what the phishing email is really intended to do, is make you react, do an emotional reaction, and do something you might not normally do.
okay. So last time it happens to my company all that where I was so that one of my boss already sent an email to all the employees that this kind of a particular message will come to your mobile that hey I'm Nick, I need some urgent help from your side. Can you just buy an Amazon card from this? I want to give the gift to particular employee. So can you just buy it from the Amazon? How to identify these particular things? Is it a scam? Because it's just like everything, right? It's coming from your boss phone number. So how the people get to know that this is my boss number or this is the exact boss number or this is a kind of a scam? How to identify that?
Well, I think one of the best defenses is to have a healthy sense of skepticism.
Mhm.
If your boss is asking for something that is completely out of left field, that you've never had that type of request before, the first thing would be like, is this really a legitimate request?
Correct. Yeah.
They can spoof phone numbers to some extent. I don't see that too often. It's actually pretty. Normally, we'll find a phone number. That's an easy indicator on like a text message. If it
Mhm.
comes from a phone number, like an area code that's
Mm.
outside the area where you and your boss work, that's definitely a big indicator.
Right.
Same thing with emails. Looking at the email address, oftentimes scammers will do an email address that looks very similar, but it's not
Mhm.
actually the same name. So if you look at
Yeah.
it very quickly, you think, oh, it's from my boss. But then you look at it a little bit closer, you
Mm.
realize, oh, that's not the same email address or the same phone number, but I've gotten all these other messages from. We talk about, a boss looking for gift cards. Have they ever asked for gift cards before?
Yeah. No.
No, probably not. The CEO probably does not need you to go out and get gift cards. If they needed to, they probably have an assistant to do that anyway. So
Correct. Yeah.
it's always looking at, is this request really in line with what normally happens? If it's not,
Mm.
then I would look at it a little bit closer. And what you can do is go back and call that not respond to the email itself, but use the email address, use the phone number that you know to be your boss, and go back and say, hey, did you make this request? And picking up the phone and verifying it solves a lot of these cuts a lot
Right.
of these scams off in the very early.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Now with the AI, now it's writing a flawless phishing email. So how do we even begin to tell what's the real and what is a fake?
Yeah, the AI is getting making the phishing emails a lot more sophisticated. It's gotten rid of a lot of the grammatical errors. It used to
Yeah.
be that we could kind of spot these coming from overseas, and you could there was just a different tone to them. Again, it goes back to, is a request that's outside the norm, and then also looking at the email address closely, not just the little name that is put in there, like who it's coming from, but looking at the message header itself.
Hmm.
Is that email address legitimate, or, and that's what I would say that would tell you the most, or should be checked every time, is the URL, the email address that it came from. Is it the same as what you would normally get?
Oh, okay. Now, are we entering the phase even with the trained professional, right? Can fooled by the AI generated threat. What does that mean for the average employee?
Well, I think there's two things. First of all, if you're talking about a business, they should have advanced email filtering in place, using technology to decrease the number of suspicious emails that land in an employee's inbox. They're not going to catch everything, but they can reduce an awful lot of all the spam, the bulk emails, and then the malicious emails that get sent out. The other thing is just, again, being skeptical of requests that are outside that normal request. I think probably the biggest challenge for employees is the people that they work with outside the organization. Example is, you might work with I don't know, like a law firm, for example. You're a business and you contact a law firm on a regular basis. You send back documents back and forth, or financial documents back and forth, and that's a regular thing. Well, if someone hacks that law firm and pretends to be that customer that you're working with already, and asks to do a request, that's the challenge for an employee. Is like, if you're the partners that your company works with, if they have cybersecurity issues, they start pretending to be about an already existing client. That's probably been one of the biggest challenges that we see now, even with a lot of technology to filter out those emails. Those ones that you have that pre-existing trusted relationship can be a challenge.
Right. So do you think that AI could be a defensive in the cybersecurity, or it is a kind of a more than a weapon?
It's really both. With the AI, we're definitely seeing a lot more sophisticated attacks. They can use it to kind of change the attack patterns on like a recurring basis. But we also use AI for our defensive systems too. Whether it's like we're talking about email, using more sophisticated AI to spot these emails, and extract them in real time. And so it's kind of really kind of a continuation of the trend we've seen in cybersecurity for a long period of time, where it's becoming faster and faster as far as the different types of attacks that we see. Our need to rely on automated systems to respond to these changing attacks has been growing. So AI has kind of accelerated that. So we've seen it both, AI is creating more sophisticated attacks, but we also have more sophisticated defenses in place. Kind of goes back to, though, on the defensive side, you do need to kind of keep those systems up to date, because if they're just been ignored, those more sophisticated attacks will find a way to get around them.
So according to your experience, as you are already working with the FBI, so suppose in the 20 after 30 years as a cybersecurity, how would you see in the future? Do you think it would be the command, give you the command to the robot that, hey, can you hack this particular website or particular government website right now? Do it right now. Do you think it will be possible in near future?
I think there will be more sophisticated tools that will kind of do some of that. You do see there are sites out there that are automated penetration testing, and so it does look for like a series of cracks in a system. If it finds a crack, then it will kind of go through a Rolodex of different techniques to try afterwards. So the ability to find vulnerabilities and exploit them is certainly going to become a lot more available to even the least sophisticated hackers. And that's really comes back to
Mm.
having a defense in depth. And so by that we mean that we have a series of controls that prevent, the attackers from getting in. If those fail and they get past that, we'll have another layer of controls, and we kind of try to layer our defenses, kind of like an onion that,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
trying to protect your most important part in the middle, but you're going to have these different layers around your systems to make it as difficult as possible for the attackers.
Right now. So it's a dark web is kind of similar, like it's a kind of a onion architecture that when you go into deep that you have to peel out some another things, right? So you cannot catch the starting point, right? That's the problem with the dark web too.
Yeah, and so the more that you can keep them away from your system and not even get a foothold or access in the first place, that's the ideal state.
Mm,
But then we also put in controls inside the network to make it
mm.
more difficult. Even if they do get access, we don't want them to be able to move around and find the valuable information that would cause the most damage to the company.
Okay. So without naming any names, can you just share the most shocking, the social engineering scams that you have already tackled?
I think one of the things that was surprising to me recently was the use of AI to pretend to be a senior official in a company.
Mm,
And this is on a video Teams chat. So they used AI to manipulate the video and audio to convince an employee to make a wire transfer. And
mm.
I think it was
Wow.
about $8 million.
Yeah.
This happened outside the U.S., but the fact that you can have a video conference, we talk online and video chats all the time, where someone had enough information about an employee to fool that person into making
Yeah.
such
Correct.
a large transfer was pretty amazing. And so I think that's one of the things is that AI that's coming out, that ability to impersonate either audio or video. That's going to be the next attack vector that we're going to see.
Right, right. We recently saw the video of the Elon Musk route too, right? Like it's a similar thing that someone is cloning your voice and try to send to your parents or someone else who are closer to your family and try to grab some money from there, right? It's a really risky for them. So for tech person, sometimes it's able to identify, but for the normal people, like suppose who are already aged, right? Who never working with the technology or anything, who doesn't know about anything kind of thing, scam could be the happen. So how they gonna do that? How they gonna protect themselves?
I think it's like protecting yourself from any other scam.
Hmm.
If it's too good to be true, it probably is. And
Yeah.
if it's something that's requesting you to do something, check with somebody before responding. I think one of the scams that we see that are targeted towards non-technology people the most are oftentimes like where they get a pop-up. They'll go to a website and they'll get a pop that says your computer's antivirus is expired, or there's a problem with your computer, and then to call this number or click on this link. And so oftentimes we'll see people that respond to these that are less skeptical, less technology savvy. And same thing is there's if you see a unsolicited notification that your system needs to be replaced and call somebody, 99.9% of the time, that's going to be a scam. And
Yeah.
so the companies, unless you have some company that's monitoring your system, which
Hmm.
personal people generally do not do, that's a very easy, that's a common scam technique that we see for personal users, and they look very convincing. They'll put the
Yeah,
Google
exactly.
logo up there,
Yeah.
and make it sound like, oh, it must be my Chrome browser. They're trying to fix it. Of course I'll call them. And no, and that's the thing about these scammers is they make a lot of effort to appear legitimate. Whether it's using logos and typeface that you see from like mainline computer companies, or if they're trying to penetrate a business, they'll take the information like a logo, the background, anything a business uses, and try to make it appear to be a legitimate business as well.
Right. So have you like ever seen a company who is completely shut down by ransomware? So what are the consequences beyond the tech sites, like people life, their mental health, right? Their job.
Yeah, so I mean, ransomware attacks unfortunately happen way too often. It sounds like something out of the movies, but it happens on a regular basis, whether
Yeah.
it's the small or large companies. And so I think the statistic is there's like a significant cyber attack every 6 seconds. So it happens and it's out there.
Hmm.
So I have seen, just in this past year, a business that was around for over 100 years, was a well-established business across multiple states. They
Hmm.
got hacked, downloaded ransomware. Even though they had some security systems in place, they were completely owned by the hackers, where they had control.
Oh
They
my.
had to take down the entire system, rebuild all their servers. They were down for probably about 2 weeks. And when a company is hacked, they never really want to. They don't say what the issue is, because it's they don't want to say we're out of
Yeah,
we
yeah.
have all these problems. But if they were down for another week, they were going to go out of business. And even they were able to recover within that time frame. But even still, it's still kind of touch and go. How they're going to be in the future. And so you talk about losing those 2 weeks of work. They had, well over 1,000 employees across multiple states, around for 100 years, and just that one hack was could have put them out of business. It really affects the company's bottom line and ability to exist. Every business leader that I've talked to that has gone through a data breach, like a CEO or any other senior leader, they always say they say the same thing. It's like, I never want to go through that again.
Hmm.
And so the data breach may only take a few hours to extract that information. And even if you have a super quick response and able to plug that hole right away, oftentimes regulators will come in. About a quarter of the data breaches result in some type of lawsuit, a class action lawsuit. And that's kind of like the new ambulance chasers now,
Hmm.
is these attorneys, they hear about some data breach, they will bring together a class action lawsuit against a company. And so the data breach is only one part of that, the first part of the series of
Hmm.
pressure and problems that occur. And sometimes these legal proceedings last at least a year, oftentimes multiple years. And so you can imagine the pressure that it has on people that are affected. There was a major data breach that occurred. The person in charge of security
Hmm.
actually had a heart attack, a couple years into it. Now, whether it's directly attributable to that, certainly the stress did not help this
Hmm.
situation. And so it can have it's certainly added stress, can certainly be damaging to people's mental health as well.
Yeah, agree, agree. So, like in your career, what's the most sophisticated you have seen where the attacks use the deep fakes or the voice cloning or the real-time manipulation?
Well, I think that attack that we talked about with the multi-million dollar wire transfer,
Yeah.
where they're appearing to present themselves as an employee in a real-time conversation. That's the most sophisticated I've seen, as far as from a deep fake
Hmm.
perspective. Most of the technology we see right now is based off of recordings. They'll record the audio and then
Hmm.
play it back. But this was real time, and so that's starting to come. And beyond just being able to manipulate the audio and video, they knew enough about both those employees where they could give responses that would have been in line with what that senior official would be. Everybody has a way of talking. There's certain phrases they use. There's certain ways they would react in a conversation.
Hmm.
The fact that the hackers were able to pull it off, not just the technology, but the mannerisms that go along with that, to convince somebody to do that transfer, is pretty
Yeah.
amazing.
So why the small business is easily attractive or easily targeted? Are the attacker like shifting the way from giant corporations to easier way?
Well, about two-thirds attacks do target small to medium-sized businesses, and it's really just a numbers game. So, business leaders in these smaller companies often think that, well, I'm smaller, so they're not going to target me, and it doesn't work that way.
Mhm.
We talked about the people that download these automated tools and scan across the internet to look for vulnerabilities. Those tools don't care whether it's a small business or a large one, whether you have a lot of money or little. They're going to look at the small, medium-sized businesses just as much as the large businesses. We think it's, the hackers target the larger companies just because those make the headlines. So you see things like, Target or Ascension Healthcare or Colonial Pipeline. These are really big multi-million dollar companies. But if a small company gets hacked, not likely you're going to see a story about it. But the majority of hacks actually go after these smaller businesses.
So what are that psychology they are using? Like why generally most they are targeted the huge companies only because of the PR they are looking for, or they just wanted to get the recognition from?
Oh, I think it's a variety of things. I mean, if the hackers are looking for to build their credentials, that if they say that they got into a major company like a Department of Defense contractor or some other well-known company that other people recognize, that kind of boosts their reputation and credibility. They also would target those larger companies because if they are successful, they are able to pull off a ransomware attack. The payday may be significantly more. Some of these large companies have, the payout might be millions of dollars, where a small business just won't have that money to pay a ransom. So there is probably a desire to go after the big fish. And so the hackers will do that, but that doesn't mean that the smaller businesses are immune either.
Right. Now, every businessman knows that how the critical information that should not be shared, how the data breach can be happen to our business, right? Then why that still the people are thinking that the expense of the cybersecurity could be the luxury expense?
Yeah, it's one of those things where no one wants to buy insurance, and same thing with no one really wants to buy security, because if it's working, how do you know? But the thing is that we talk about an ounce prevention is worth a pound of cure, and that is so true in cybersecurity, where there's so much more that we can do to prevent an attack than helping someone recover from one. It's a lot cheaper, even though people don't want to, might necessarily have restricted amounts that they can spend on security. It does cost money, and but it really is no longer optional for a couple reasons. One is the attacks can come from anywhere, and it's really part of being in business nowadays, unfortunately, where like a business leader needs to look at different risk factors and metrics to kind of make sure their business is on track. They might look at operations, their finances, HR, things like that, and they want to make sure that they're kind of on track on all those things. Same thing with cybersecurity. If you're not tracking it and know what your risk exposure is, it can go from an okay day to a complete business shutdown immediately. And so that's why companies really need to look at what the risk exposure is and track it and have an understanding about it. The big thing is, even if a small business doesn't have a lot of resources, they should look at doing something. And if they take the first step, that's at least they're taking a step in the right direction. And normally that's doing some type of assessment, looking at what is your risk, what technology you have in place, and kind of building out a roadmap from there as far as these are the things that would be recommended as far as step 2, step 3. These are the things that we would recommend that you do, that would have the most bang for your buck, even if you have limited resources.
Okay. Now, suppose if you implement the cybersecurity for a small business, like let's say if you went to one company and you try to threaten the CEO, like that if you don't use that cybersecurity, that what would happen to your business. So what's the most terrifying stat or real life outcome you would use?
I think there's two different types of stats. One is for small businesses. The average cost of a breach is about $2.3 million for a smaller, medium-sized business. It's significantly more for larger companies. And then also that statistic we talked about, 60% of those small businesses going out of business afterwards. So either way you look at it, the cost of ignoring it is so high. Either you can imagine any small business having a $2.5 million loss on their bottom line is really going to cause a lot of damage, and it may even put them out of business. So I think that's that's why I kind of keep going back to this isn't really an IT issue. This is a business leadership issue.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. So now you mentioned the passion over the paycheck. Sometime, yeah, that people's are many right, new students doesn't want to make a career in a cybersecurity, right? So How can someone prove that it's truly cut off the cybersecurity career beyond the degree?
Yeah, I think, when we're hiring cybersecurity personnel, it's people that have been involved in cyber for a period of time. And so oftentimes if they're new into the workforce, things that I look for is do they have some type of computer background in addition to cybersecurity, like computer, and they don't have to know operating systems and all that other stuff. But do they understand networking? Do they understand how technology goes together? Do they have a passion for technology? And I think those things kind of drive a lot as far as a good cybersecurity engineer or analyst is having a passion for it and having and wanting to learn more too. I think one of the things is if they're curious about cybersecurity, they want to understand it better. That's something that's also kind of a differentiator.
Mhm.
Um, uh, Technology and security are constantly changing, and so you're always having to learn new stuff. And
Yeah.
so if someone wants to learn, wants to get involved, figure out not only just I know these things today, okay, but I'm also learning these other things. That is something that stands out. If they're going into cybersecurity, they're going to be learning for the entire career.
Right. So what's the brutal reality about the working with the cybersecurity that nobody tells you?
I think there's a level of stress that goes with it because the consequences of not getting it right are so
Yeah.
great.
Hmm.
And so the attackers only have to be right once. On the defense, cybersecurity personnel have to be right all the time. And so that's why we do those layered layers of defense. If one fails, we can kind of fall back on the other one. And so we put an awful lot of emphasis on preparation, putting controls and security in place before it even happens, just because we want to reduce the stress, the anxiety as much as possible for our business and the people that are working on security.
So do you think that we are in the cybersecurity war, or we are just entering into the phase of dangerous of?
I think it's shifting gears a little bit,
Okay.
where we talked about the acceleration of like the attacks are changing quicker, defenses have to change quicker, and so I think that change is just going to continue to accelerate. And so the types of attacks that we see are probably going to remain the same. I think one of the things is like even for a business that has basic security in place, the hackers are going to try to take advantage of employees and trick them into letting them in. And
Hmm.
so we're going to see that that human component is going to take as much of a importance as it ever has, because the technology will never be able to pull out all those phishing emails. That we also have to have people that work for a business that understand the threats and kind of think on their own. So even though the technology is speeding up, that human awareness is going to be just as important as ever.
Yeah. All right. All right. Now, in cybersecurity terms, like we heard so many times like ethical hacking and unethical hacking. So what is that? What is ethical and unethical hacking?
So ethical hacking there's another term for it is called penetration testing. And
Mhm.
so what they do is it's a professional person that knows how to find vulnerabilities and hack into a network, but they are working for a professional company or do it on a professional basis. And the reason for doing that is they've arranged with that company to test the defenses, try to get in. And what that does is it tells the company where are my defenses strong and where do they need to be improved.
Hmm.
And they'll set out certain guidelines or rules of engagement. So even if they do that test,
Hmm.
they don't accidentally damage some critical business system when they're doing that. All other hacking is I would consider unethical,
Right.
because that's either trying to if you're trying to get into a system that's a violation of federal law that's trying to get unauthorized access to a system, and so unless they're authorized ahead of time by the company, that it's not ethical.
Right.
It's basically criminal hacking at that point.
So whenever you implement the cybersecurity for a particular business, that how you are gonna check that it's secure? Do you using that ethical hacking?
Oh yeah. So we do use ethical hacking or penetration testing on a regular basis.
Okay.
Really depends on the business. If they're in a highly regulated industry, they might do it more often. But
Mhm.
that ethical hacking actually tells a lot to the engineers that are in charge of the cyber defenses, what's working, what's not, and it's very helpful.
Okay. Okay. Let's have a rapid fire round. I'm gonna ask you 10 questions only. The one word that you have to give answer. No explanation. Just answer.
Just one word, huh?
Yeah, one word only.
Okay.
Biggest threat today: AI, human, or nation?
AI,
Most dangerous: phishing, ransomware, or insider?
phishing.
Most vulnerable: startups, mid-size, or enterprise?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Most vulnerable: startups, mid-size, or enterprise?
Oh, startups.
First target in a hack: HR, finance, or CEO?
The most targeted?
Yeah.
Or I'll go CEO.
The worst mistake: clicking, reusing passwords, or ignoring alerts?
Yeah, all those are good answers. I'm going to go with clicking,
Clicking,
but
okay.
you make me want to talk about passwords a little bit. So,
Okay, stronger defense: training, tech, or culture?
culture.
Future of hacking: AI, quantum, or deepfake?
It's generally AI.
Okay. One tool you trust, any tool that you trust.
I'm going to say frameworks.
Frameworks, okay. Next big scam target: remote workers, healthcare, or finance?
I would say healthcare, but they are already a big target.
Healthcare, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So are we in a cyber war? Yes or no?
I'd say we're always in a cyber conflict.
Yeah.
And so the hacking is always going on. It's been going on for, probably since first computers hooked up the internet. You had the first computer
Yeah.
talking. Didn't take long for hackers to come along and see how they could take advantage of that. There are cyber criminal activities that are ongoing. There's also a level called cyber warfare where nation states try to compromise the systems of an enemy. We've seen Russia and Ukraine,
Yeah.
the conflict going on there. Don't hear a whole lot about the cyber aspect of it, which is kind of surprising to me, because Russia actually had hacked into their electrical grids many times before the war, but apparently the Ukrainians had learned quite a bit about that, and
Yeah.
was able to kind of put some defenses in place before the conflict.
Yeah. I think the third world war will be the cyber war rather than the nuclear bomb and everything. I think the future war will be the cyber war.
Yeah, it's definitely another battlefield, or another
Yeah, exactly.
aspect to the battlefield.
Yeah, because it's help the nation could be the down, right?
Yeah, I mean, you take, any type of conflict or warfare, the big challenge is always communications,
Right.
talking amongst all the different units that are trying to work together. And so imagine most of our communications are internet based. You compromise that,
Yeah.
that's a huge advantage for an enemy.
Yeah, agree. Thank you, Jonathan. It was a wonderful conversation. I really enjoyed a lot, and you taught a lot of things about the cybersecurity, about the business threats. Hopefully, all the business, small business particularly, are taking the considerations of having the cybersecurity, and they're gonna expand the amount on that one. Thank you
No,
so much.
yeah, thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, Samir.